Hi, Kat here for Lightwave Digital. In this video, we're going to be talking about morphs. In computer graphics, these are essentially a method of changing the shape or form of an object and displacing it into another shape or form based off of that original object. Sometimes they're referred to as morph targets. In other packages, they're referred to as blend shapes, simply morphs. In Lightwave, they're actually called endomorphs, but morph is interchangeable pretty much across the board. So let's do something here that will create a morph, and we need some geometry. So we can start with something simple. Again, lovely box. Let's segment this just using the up and down arrow keys to increase the segments depending on which view my mouse is in. Okay, so something like this maybe. Let's hit enter, and I'll just center this because I'd like to have my stuff centered. And in this particular case, we have some geometry that I can grab, and I want to do something cool with this. So I want to possibly do something like a broadcast logo where, really cool piece of metal that rises up from another piece of metal and there's no seams to it. This is a great example of that. So let's take a look at extending this using the bevel tool. So we'll go to multiply and we'll hit B for bevel. And I'm just going to go to the top view and hit Control, and I'm going to push my mouse button, left mouse button down, and push it this direction a little bit. Now I'm going to hit Enter to drop that, and I'm going to deselect this, and I'm going to go to points mode, and I'm going to select all of these, and now I'm going to hit H, and I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to drag everything down, and you can see that the furthest points that were out there now crush back to the position of our original mesh. So cool little trick there. Now the reason for me doing that is because I want this to grow out of the shape, like so. Like if I go back, now I have this as something that can extend rather than the polygon moving and then all of these sides distorting with it. So this was just a method for me to get a single kind of square pillar to come out the face of the mesh. So now that we've got this, we need to morph it, make it do something. So let's go over and look down at this window here, this set of menus, and you can see that it's already selected as M because that's what I was working with before. So we're going to go M, we're going to go new, M is for morph, so we're going to go new morph, and we're going to work with a morph name box.morph. Okay. It doesn't have to have the dot in there. This is just a tip. It's suggested that you use morph using the group.pose format. Things like eyes.open or mouth.smile. This will help organize things in the morph mixer in layout, so keeps things nice and clean because it's going to list it in a alphabetical type of order. All right, now there are two types of morphs. Basic description of this is relative targets the recorded point displacement relative to base object, so the base object and its relative position. All right, now the absolute targets are not affected by positional changes to the base object, although they do reflect changes to the number of points in the object. So a little bit of different explanation there. But in general, I almost always use relative because I don't need to have anything that isn't working with the object as it's displaced or moved in layout. I always want it to pretty much go the direction that I intended it to when I built it in Modeler. So I'm going to use create on this, and then we can actually close this window down now, but we notice that the entire interface has drawn these blue boxes. This indicates that you're in the morph mode. So any changes to the geometry that you make here are now essentially stored in that morph. So let's go to the base. Okay. Let's go to the morph. There's our morph. All right, so let's save this. Let's go to our videos, go objects. Cool morph cube, something to distinguish it. And now we can send this over to layout. Just really quickly though, we're going to give this a surface name, metal plate. All right, resave it. Send it over to layout. And now we've got a box. Now what do we do with the box? This isn't like the old Little Caesars commercial where you want to make some origami out of it, but you certainly could. Let's go to a different shaded display mode. Let's go to shaded wireframe so we can see what's going on here. And now that we've got this morph cube, how do you make it morph? Well, click properties, and under here, it's not necessarily under morphing. This is for morph targets. This is the old way of doing things. We want to use a modifier that we can add to our modifier stack called morph mixer. And morph mixer will drop into the end there, and we can double click it. We're going to be presented with this very nice menu here that will give you access to sliders when the morph is selected, and we can animate this morph over time. So we can do things like animated Boolean almost, or extend this. And keep in mind, you don't have to be restricted to the amount of the envelope here or the slider. You can extend this. You can go 200%, and you can keep on going. And this has a really handy little keyframe button. So let's go back to 0. Let's go down the time slider a little bit. We'll go keyframe that. Go to the time slider a little bit, and we'll keyframe this. Okay, and this will give us a resulting envelope in the graph editor. You won't see the animation keys in the dope track there. You will see them up here though. And then we can make some modifications to this so that it is nice and smooth with attention to the curve, so that when you do slide the playhead back and forth, you'll see that it starts off kind of slow and then slows down when it's just about open, and there you go. Now that's a very, very basic, simple explanation of how the morph mixer works, how to create a morph in Lightwave Modeler, and of course animate them. But this can be used for doing everything from facial animation to correcting bone distortions on arms and limbs, everything that you can possibly imagine to help correct a piece of geometry that might be intersecting with itself. Take it into Lightwave Modeler and adjust it, or take it into Chronosculpt and produce your morphs there and then animate them in Lightwave Layout. It will all come back across and will all be available as a list of morphs, and you can do all kinds of fun things inside of this editor. Even though it's as simple as you see it here now, once you have a large amount of morphs in here, there's quite a few options that you can take care of. You can do morph mixings, you can save out morph mixes, display all active morphs only, so you're not getting confused with a bunch of mixes that are morphs that are not being used. Lots of really interesting stuff that we can done with just morphs. All right, thank you for watching.